Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for Wednesday, November 6th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to buy a win over the last couple of days as the Spurs, we took them at -5.5. They closed at -6. They were up 8 going into the fourth, and they got outscored by 16 points in the fourth quarter as they lost outright. I don't know, just not working out right now, but the one thing I do know is that college football last week, we actually did give out a winner. So we will look to go to college football today in one of the look-ahead lines as I see a line that has climbed up, and it's about to cross a key number, and I want to get on it before it ends up crossing that number. In terms of today's cards, I will give out the leans on some of the plays, but overall, I would say it's not the best card for the middle of the week. However, it's still pretty diverse in the sense that you have some hockey, some college basketball, some NBA, and some college football. So I'll give out my thoughts on those, but the play of the day will be on a college football matchup that will be taking place on Saturday at 3 p.m., and it will be between Charlotte and UTEP, and we like Charlotte at -13.5, which is available on FanDuel at -105, and that will be the play of the day. Now, Charlotte, so far this season, has been awful on the road, to say the least, which is concerning going to this game. However, UTEP is absolutely terrible, and they have lost 7 straight games. UTEP has not beaten an FBS opponent all season long. Their only win came against Houston Baptist by 2 points in the regular season opener. If you've never heard of Houston Baptist, that's because they're not FBS, so that doesn't mean anything. But if you look at UTEP's recent results, they have lost every single game that they've played by double digits, and each of the last 2 weeks they have lost. Actually, I'm trying to look through. The only time that they have lost by less than 14 points was against UTSA, and UTSA is one of the worst teams in D1 as well as one of the worst teams in the CUSA conference. So overall, Charlotte, the issue that UTEP has is that they can't score. If you look at their actual results, they've only scored 27 or more points once this season, and that was against Houston Baptist. They scored 26 last week against North Texas, but they gave up 52 in the process. Other than that, though, they've scored 21 points or less in every single game. And Charlotte, even though they have struggled on the road, their offense has actually been really good. As a whole this season, they have won each of their last 2 games, but if you have looked at their offense, they have scored at least 34 points in each of their last 2 games. They've broken 40-plus points. Let me just count this. Yeah, they've broken 40-plus points on numerous occasions this season, and I just simply think they have a much better offense that should be able to score at least 30 to 40 points in this game due to UTEP's below-average defense and their terrible offense. In terms of Charlotte's offense, you have Chris Reynolds, very solid dual-threat quarterback, who has thrown for 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He's also rushed for 425 rushing yards. Main issue with Charlotte, though, is the status of star running back Benny LeMay, who ended up missing the game last week, but according to reports from the head coach, he has been feeling better this week, and he is expected to play in this game. However, last week he did not play, and backup Aaron McAllister did run for 100-plus yards and a touchdown, so even the backups are solid on the ground, as they were able to beat a decent Middle Tennessee State team in their conference. But as a whole, I just think that Charlotte has too many weapons on offense. I think this team should score at least 40 points. The main issue with Charlotte is their defense, but UTEP's offense has been so bad this season that I think it shouldn't really matter. There's a reason why this line opened up at -11.5, and it's currently up to -13.5. This should close at around 14 or 14.5, and I definitely want the key number of 14, so I would advise taking this number now if you choose to bet this game at all. But the play of the day for that reason will be on Charlotte -13.5, which is available on FanDuel at -105. Now, in terms of the rest of the betting card, looking at the rest of today's action instead of Saturday's, we'll start out with the college football game that will be between Miami, Ohio, and Ohio, as Ohio is currently a 7-point favorite, and you also have seen the total creep upward from 54.5 to 56.5. With the MAC in the middle of the week, as we saw yesterday, in the MAC in the middle of the week, you typically bet the overs and you usually win. As they ended up going 2-0 yesterday, I'd lean to the over in this one as well, as Ohio's defense has left a lot to be desired, but their offense is still pretty solid. In terms of the game itself, I would lean to Ohio -7, as Ohio's been really good at home this season and pretty underwhelming on the road. But Miami, Ohio, they've been okay, but overall I just think Ohio's a much better team, and I think that Ohio will definitely look to move up in the MAC standings with a win in this one. So for me, I'm going to lean to Ohio, and I think Ohio should win this game by about 10 points, give or take. So that's and I would lean to the overs. I think Ohio should get into the high 30s due to their underrated offense that has scored at least 34 points in each of their last 3 games. So lean to that. It is also a very important matchup because the winner of this game will move into sole possession of first place in the East Division of the MAC. So I think Ohio will look to lay it on them, as people did not expect Miami, Ohio to be this good so far this season. So I think Miami, Ohio has overachieved a bit up to this point. I think Ohio is kind of fallen under the radar a bit. Lean to Ohio on that one. Moving on to the rest of the card, lean to the Bucks tonight at -6. Kawhi Leonard's not playing. I feel like that's enough to say, as now nobody's going to guard Giannis. Giannis is going to go for at least 30 and 15 again, as he did against the Timberwolves when they didn't have Karl-Anthony Towns. I know that Anthony Towns as a center is more of a rim protector in comparison to Kawhi Leonard, but nobody can guard Giannis, and I don't think Zubac or Harrell or anybody's going to have an answer. So I think Milwaukee should win this game by double digits. Lean to the Bucks on that one. Moving on, lean to Atlanta. Chicago did everything possible to lose the game against the Lakers yesterday, and then their coach gave one of the worst press conferences in which he talked about the importance of developing the bench, even though they were in the fourth quarter against one of the best teams in the league. It didn't really make any sense. And Atlanta, they were able to get the win against the Spurs. Collins being out is it's not great, but at the same point, Atlanta has looked really good at home this season, and I think they will look good once again. And Chicago has had issues on defensively in particular, and I think Atlanta should be able to score points at will. Lean to Atlanta in that one. Other than that, though, looking at the rest of the betting card, I'm going to lean to the over in the Indiana and Washington game. Total's been bet up from roughly 220.5 to 224. So a lot of movement on the over. I'm going to back the over on that. That looks like sharp money. Lean to the over on that one as well. And other than that, though, in terms of basketball, not really much else to talk about. If you wanted to lean to Minnesota, you can against Memphis because Anthony Towns will be back in the lineup. So I would expect Minnesota to play well. But as a whole, though, looking at college basketball now, don't really have any thoughts, honestly. There were a couple of games I thought about giving out as play of the day, but I decided not to. Lean to Arizona, -23 against Northern Arizona. It's a big spread, but Arizona and Sean Miller actually retooled pretty well during the offseason. They were able to keep some key pieces, like Jeter and Randolph and some other guys who were key contributors last year. Plus, they were able to acquire some talent during the offseason. They got graduate transfer Max Hazard from UC Irvine. They also ended up getting Josh Green, who was a 5-star recruit out of high school, who ended up coming to Arizona this season. They also got Mannion, who was the number 1 point guard prospect out of high school this past signing season. So Arizona definitely retooled with some youth to pair together with some capable veterans. I think Arizona will be an underrated team. I think they will be competitive in the Pac-12. Will they win the Pac-12? No. But it's also interesting because Northern Arizona lost their head coach in the middle of the offseason. Their head coach went from Northern Arizona to becoming an assistant coach at Arizona, and now they play each other in the first game of the season. It's really weird because the head coach of Northern Arizona, who recruited everybody and who was the head coach of them for a couple of years, is now coaching for the opposition. So he knows everything about all the players from Northern Arizona. I think Arizona will win by 30. Lean to Arizona in that one. Other than that, lean to UCLA -17 against Long Beach State. UCLA, it's the first game of the Mick Cronin era after he decided to leave Cincinnati for UCLA. It should be a work in progress, but UCLA does have some talent. They will be getting Sharif O'Neal back, Shaq's son, in other words, who had a heart issue last season, and he did not play, but he is active, and he is expected to play serious minutes for UCLA. I think UCLA just has more talent. I think they have a better coach. Long Beach State has played no defense for a long time, and Long Beach State loses a ton of pieces from last year's team that was already not that good. I think UCLA should win by 20-plus points. Lean to UCLA in that one. Other than that, though, looking at the rest of the card, not really many other thoughts, as it's a little bit too early to tell on what to expect from most of the teams in college basketball, which is why I've been laying off for the most part in terms of giving out plays of the day. I usually wait till the team's second game because I've already seen them in action, so I already know what their offense is based on, for example, or or what their defensive scheme is. But overall, I typically like to wait it out a bit on college basketball before diving in. So other than that, not really going to focus on anything else in terms of college basketball, just because, I'm kind of waiting to see what jumps out at me and stuff like that. I would pay attention to Belmont, though. I'm not saying that you should bet Belmont, but I would pay attention to them, as Belmont is projected to have a really good year, but they did lose Windler as he's gone, and they also lost their head coach for about 30-something years as he finally retired. One of his disciples ended up taking over, but it remains to be seen whether or not this team will struggle early on with the changing of the guard in the head coaching department, or if this team will make a smooth transition. If Belmont makes a smooth transition and they end up taking care of business against Illinois State today, watch out, because Belmont can be really good, and I think they could easily make it back to the NCAA tournament once again this season. So I think that they could be a potential team to pay attention to as a cash cow later on, but that does depend on how well they adjust to the new head coach. So that remains to be seen, but keep an eye on that. Other than that, though, in terms of hockey, you have St. Louis versus Edmonton, and you have Detroit versus the Rangers. In terms of value, I'd have to lean to both underdogs. The Rangers, I don't think, are a good enough team to be laying 145, but I don't think Detroit's that good of a team either. But it's hockey, so anything could happen. I think there's no value in betting the Rangers on that one. And St. Louis versus Edmonton. St. Louis is one of the best records in all of hockey. Edmonton's been really good as well, but I think that this game is closer than the odds indicate. The odds have it at minus 140. I think it should be somewhere in the realm of minus 125, give or take. So I would lean to St. Louis on the money line just for sheer value. And I also would lean to Detroit on the money line as well, just because of value, as I don't think the Rangers are that good of a hockey team. But other than that, though, play of the day will be on Charlotte minus 13.5 on Saturday College Football, which is available at minus 105 on FanDuel. Other than that, though, that's going to do with this installment of Scott's Selections here for Wednesday, November 6th. I'm going to look to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.